Drumming isn't just about rhythm and groove, it's a full body workout. Imagine burning 600 calories an hour and peaking with heart rates over 190 BPM. Well, this is the reality of what it takes to be a drummer. I'm Alan and I'm one of the team here at SPL, where we believe that there's a place for drumming and sport and fitness to come together, and that's the underpinning of our Sports Drum Professional League. In today's video, we're going to be diving into some of the science that supports that. So it's not just about what we believe, there's a strong scientific foundation that demonstrates the demands on a drummer's body. If you like this video, please give us a like and subscribe. I'll only be taking a relatively surface level look at some of this science. If what you want is a follow-up video because you want to dive into some of the details, the strengths and limitations of these studies, please do comment and I'll happily do that for you. I'll try and sprinkle in a little bit of critical appraisal today, but for the most part, we're just going to be looking at the main points. Back in 2008, the legendary drummer Clem Burke from Blondie, who sadly passed away this year, teamed up with some sports scientists from two UK universities, and they started the Clem Burke Drumming Project. Whilst this is just a case study, it only follows one single drummer, it does demonstrate over a period of time and over several instances the physiological demands of drumming. And when science and drumming first came together in 2008, the results were mind-blowing. What they found was that Clem Burke would burn up to 600 calories an hour, his heart rate would peak over 190 BPM, and he would sustain the level of fitness and endurance equitable with professional footballers. A big part of their work with this project was to demonstrate that drummers have the same requirements of fitness as elite level athletes. They demonstrated that drumming is a hugely aerobic exercise, that it requires massive amounts of aerobic fitness with significantly raised max VO2, and they demonstrated that muscular endurance is also a must for high-level, high-performing drummers. But the science doesn't end there. It's not just about the Clem Burke Drumming Project. Other scientists have investigated the physiological demands on drummers. For example, Kim et al. In 2016 were interested in muscle activation. Drumming might look as though it's all in the wrists, but just as I said in the intro, it's a full body workout, and the science demonstrates that as well. For example, Kim et al. In 2016, they used surface EMG to measure muscle activation in the upper limbs of drummers. So placing EMG pads over the biceps and triceps, they were able to demonstrate that there's some serious muscle activation in those muscular groups, and in particular as stroke intensity increased. Their conclusions are that strength training is a must for drummers, as this can have a significant benefit on muscular endurance, and not just in the upper arms, but also in the shoulders, the core and the legs. Even just the act of moving in rhythm over a long period of time requires sustained muscular usage. And when we add in extreme forms of drumming, such as double pedal use and increased intensity, then that muscular endurance is going to really play a part in the performance. Not only is strength training important for performance, but it's also important for avoiding injury. So strength training itself is important for ensuring that you're correctly conditioned to sustain that type of performance over a long period of time, and avoid muscular fatigue and the increased risk of injury that comes with being fatigued over a long period of time. But it's not just about the musculoskeletal system. The neurological system of drummers as well has been investigated. A year later, in 2017, Mergier et al. Demonstrated that drummers have a significantly increased reaction time and significantly increased sensory motor control when compared to non-drummers. Even when compared to other musicians, drummers have the edge. In fact, drummers are even able to outperform some athletes on these tests. So not only is drumming physically intense, it also takes up a lot of brain power too, contrary to what most guitarists would tell us. So if you're a touring drummer, not only do you need to be a physical powerhouse, you also need to be a neurological one too. So linking with Kim et al. In 2016, other studies have also demonstrated the importance of correct training to avoid injuries. According to one study in 2020, around 68% of drummers record playing-related musculoskeletal injuries. These are most commonly in the wrists and the lower back. So what the science is telling us is that proper, good quality strength training shouldn't be an option for drummers, it's a necessity, both for conditioning and to help prevent injury. It's an important part of being able to sustain your performance over a long period of time, to play at high intensity, and to really give your all in a performance, not just on stage, but also in drum battles as well. When you consider injuries to the wrist and the lower back, it's really important to not only consider strength training, but also ergonomics and the way that we move and flow around the kit. You don't want to be in a position where you're hunched over your drum kit or having to move your body in a way that doesn't really work ergonomically. Whilst the scientific evidence base seems relatively strong in regard to the benefits of drumming and the effects of drumming itself on the body and on the neurological system, and even as far as using drumming therapeutically, for example, the Drums Alive project that demonstrates that drumming has a benefit in and of itself for huge amounts of people, not only fit, healthy drummers, but also novice drummers and people from groups such as those with intellectual and physical disadvantages. However, the scientific evidence base aimed at specific training programs and strength and conditioning specifically for drummers appears to be lacking. My searches haven't found anything significant that demonstrates anything around specific training programs aimed at drummers and how to make those improvements. So we need to make inferences from the body of evidence around strength training itself. As a result, the strength of the recommendations here are probably open to debate. So if you think that you've got some good advice about strength and conditioning for drumming, please let us know in the comments. In which case, my reading for this video has demonstrated that there should be a benefit to cardiovascular training, and especially building a strong aerobic base that we know from the Clem Burke Drumming Project that drumming has a real aerobic demand, but it must have some anaerobic demand as the intensity increases and you have bursts of high intensity in the middle of a song or in the middle of a set. And so having a good cardiovascular and aerobic base is going to be important. And from that aerobic base, we can then build some of our anaerobic fitness on top of that. So cardiovascular training up to 3 times a week should have a benefit so that then you can sustain high heart rates over a long period of time. Things like running and cycling and swimming, anything that's going to help push your heart rate into that cardiovascular zone. And you can even start to introduce things like high intensity interval training that are going to help you not only sustain a heart rate, but also have those spikes and boost that anaerobic fitness as well. When it comes to strength training, everybody's going to have an opinion on this, and it's really difficult to make some strong recommendations based on the evidence here. However, there is a strong evidence base around strength training, and sticking to those good quality foundations is going to be important. Things like progressive overload and periodization are going to have an impact on your strength training. So whether you decide to go with a push-pull method or sticking to the big 5, everyone's going to have a different opinion, so you may as well stick it in the comments and we can see what people make of that. But the recommendations here are that you use a full body workout, having a focus on your arms, in particular forearms, shoulders, your back and core are going to be important, but also making sure that your legs are included. So just a good quality full body workout that follows those principles of progressive overload and periodization. Flexibility is going to be important. And again, this is going to be controversial and it's likely to spark a lot of debate. Yoga practitioners will vouch for the stretching and yoga benefits. However, I know that there's a big school of thought that actually you should be taking your body through full range of movement, and that strength training itself, such as in CrossFit, where taking your joints through a full range of motion should be enough to ensure that you have good flexibility and good mobility within your joints. Another important element to your strength training though is going to be your grip training. So you can look at other sports such as climbing and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to see what those athletes are doing to strengthen their grip. Towel grip pull-ups are great because they give you the opportunity to not only train your grip, but also to train a pull-up at the same time. Significant athletes we're looking at include the Raspberry Ape, Dan Strauss. Big shout out to him for his grip strength training. He's got loads of resources and he's a really interesting guy to look at if you want to train grip strength specifically. Another foundation of strength and conditioning is situation specific or sport specific conditioning. You could apply the high intensity interval training method where you have intervals of high intensity starting at 10 minutes, working up gradually to a 30 or 60 minute moderate to high intensity performance as part of your practice. And then you're able to apply those principles of strength and conditioning directly behind the drum kit and supplementing that with your strength and cardiovascular training that we've already discussed. what about preparing for drum battle specifically? Because this environment is different to a concert environment. It's defined by short, intense bursts of performance, trying to get as much out of yourself as a performer and as much out of the kit as you can in a relatively short space of time. So the SPL format is that we expect our drummers to perform 10 sets of increased length, so that then we start with just a short fill, so a set that lasts a few seconds, and they gradually increase up to the final set lasting about 60 seconds. So that might call on some real extreme playing, the sort of things that we see in extreme metal, power metal, that type of thing. In which case, coming back to that principle that your conditioning should be specific to the sport that you're performing, well, if what you're performing is short bursts of activity, then throwing as much high intensity over a short period of time as you can could benefit your performance. So to sum up, if you want to play like a pro, you've got to train like a pro. In this video, we've covered some of the scientific backdrop that demonstrates the physiological demands on drummers and the benefits that drumming has on the musculoskeletal and the neurological system. If you've enjoyed this, please like and subscribe for more. And please leave a comment if you want me to follow up with anything that goes deeper into the critical appraisal of some of these studies, or you're interested in the scientific background in general. Just let us know, and we'll hopefully see you soon.